Sup guys, it's Alex here and welcome to another edition of the Bracketology update. This one is for February 7th, 2020, and we are getting into crunch time of the conference not the conference tournament season, conference play season. We are about a month away from the tournament, and this Saturday they are going to be announcing, or the NCAA selection committee is going to be announcing their top 16 seeds. As of today, it will be like the 1, 2, 3, and 4 seeds in order of the top 16 teams according to how the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee would select the teams and seed the teams right now. I am super excited for that. I don't know if I'll be recording it. I think last year and maybe the year before that I recorded it, but now I don't have TV at my house, so we'll kind of see what happens with that. May go over somewhere else and gonna see what happens, but I'll definitely be giving some analysis on it either way. Just don't know if I'll be doing the actual live recording of it. But anyway, after a few days of crazy conference play in like just the weekdays and stuff, where Louisville overcame like a 20-point deficit to Wake Forest to win at home, and then Penn State went on the road and beat Michigan State, Minnesota, beating Wisconsin by like 18, just crazy stuff like that. Not too any crazy upsets, but just crazy results and like things that went on during the games with different comebacks and stuff. But anyway, I'm just kind of rambling on here. We are going to take a look at the different regions here. Up left in the top left regional, we have Baylor as the 1 seed. Rutgers is down to an 8 seed, as you can see. Cincinnati is new to the field as a 12 seed. They are the American Conference qualifier as of right now. They just went on the road and beat Wichita State last night, so they are now at the top of the American Conference. Butler is now up to a 4 after Kamar Baldwin's huge three-pointer to beat Villanova. It was like 79-76, something like that. But it was a huge time shot by Kamar Baldwin for Butler to win. Iowa is now down to a 6 after getting absolutely hammered by Purdue. Purdue hit 19 three-pointers, scored 61 in the first half. It was just absolutely crazy. I would just kind of write that game off if I'm analyzing Iowa. I mean, their opponents aren't going to hit 19 three-pointers against them every game. But either way, that was impressive for Purdue, and as you'll see later, they are now in the field pretty safely, or not safely, but they have some wiggle room now. And Northern Iowa is down to an 11. Marquette is now down to a 7. Then we have Texas Tech up to an 8. Wichita State is down to a 9 after that loss I mentioned earlier to Cincinnati. Illinois is now up to a 6. Bowling Green, as you can see, or a little bit down there, they are the 15 seed below Duke. They are now down to a 15. Then Kansas remains... My bad there, I don't know what happened. But we have, that was the East Regional. Up in the top right regional, I believe that is the Midwest with Kansas as the 1 seed. Murray State is down to a 16. They are still the automatic qualifier from the OVC, but they ended up losing to Belmont last night. Penn State is now up to a 5 seed after going on the road and beating Michigan State. That was a really impressive win, and you'll kind of see with my bracketology predictions how I thought about that. Then we have not too many changes over here in this bracket, but we do have Xavier and Mississippi State in the playing game, as you can see right there. Mississippi State's moving their way up. They did lose to Kentucky this week, but I mean, losing on the road to Kentucky isn't a bad thing. And then Xavier is now in the tournament field as of right now after that good road win against, I can't remember who it was against. I think it was Seton Hall. Don't quote me on that. But then Purdue, as I mentioned earlier, they are now up to a 10 seed. As they just had a really impressive win, 104 to 68, something like that. Super impressive. They now have some wiggle room with that. It's just a weird resume that they have this season. Then down here in the West Regional, we have San Diego State, still the only undefeated team left in college basketball. They are the 1 seed in the West Regional. Like St. Mary's and Michigan, those two teams switched positions from last week, or the last bracketology that I did. St. Mary's is now up to an 8, and Michigan's down to a 9 after losing at home to Ohio State. LSU is now down to a 5 after the horrible road loss to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt hadn't won an SEC game in like 2 years, and then LSU goes and loses to them. Creighton is down to a 6 after getting handled by Providence this week. Then Oklahoma and Virginia are the playing game right there. And then Virginia is actually turning it on recently. I think they're on like 3 or 4 in a row. They still can't score on offense, but their defense is picking up the slack for their offense there. Then Charleston is new to the field as a 14 seed. Ohio State is now on I think a 3-game win streak. They are now up to a 7 seed. They are starting to put some wins together, and as I mentioned earlier, they did go on the road and beat Michigan, which is pretty impressive in the course of the Big Ten. Then down here, we'll take a look at the bracket and Montana's new to the field. I guess I'll throw in there as the 15 seed. On the bubble, last 4 byes are Rhode Island, Purdue, Indiana, and Florida. Last 4 in are Virginia, Xavier, Oklahoma, and Mississippi State. I think I can't stand Oklahoma this season. I think they deserve to be out. But then the first four out, Memphis, is now projected to be outside of the field after being projected 1 seed at one point with all that hype behind them. I said, no way. Them in Florida, which Florida, I mean, is still kind of hanging in there. But those were the two teams I'm most proud about. I did not think they were going to do good at the start of the season. I thought they were way too overhyped, and I have been proven right so far. VCU, Minnesota, who had that impressive win or I think it was at home against Wisconsin, but either way, it was still impressive. And then East Tennessee State are the first four out. Next four out are Utah State, NC State, Liberty, and Texas. So as you guys know, Bracketology did get shut down this season, for this year. So I have to go to this Excel document where I've been doing my NCAA tournament predictions and stuff. It's just the easiest way for you guys to kind of visualize everything that's going on. And then I'll kind of go over there to that left side. We have, it's just the best way for me to kind of go game by game instead of trying to like point or whatever. It's just the easiest way to visualize it and stuff. So we'll go ahead and do this top left regional first. At first, we have Baylor. Obviously, they're going to beat the winner of Texas Southern and St. Peter's. I think that Rutgers can hold on against USC and get the first like tournament win in almost, I think, 20 years, I want to say. Kentucky, I think, will be able to beat Cincinnati. Then we got Butler beating Winthrop. Iowa, I think, will be able to hold on against Northern Iowa, though that I'm sure that like there's some fans or some students that go to Northern Iowa that are fans of Iowa, so that'd be a pretty cool kind of like a Western Kentucky thing, just a little fun in-state rivalry there. I think Iowa's still going to win, though. Then we got Florida State beating Little Rock. Those two teams seem to just be moving around with each other around the course of the bracket. Then we got Marquette beating Stanford. I think Stanford ended up losing last night to Utah, which, I mean, within the Pac-12 is a bad loss, but they haven't moved down at all. They're just kind of hanging out around that 10 spot. Then we got Dayton beating South Dakota State. Up next, we have Baylor. I don't think they'll struggle too much against Rutgers and move on there. Kentucky, I think, can get the victory here in a 5-over-4 against Butler. I think they're just a more talented team, and if they can play to their abilities, I think that they can definitely get the job done there. Then we got Iowa and Florida State. This one's a pretty tough one for me here. I can definitely see Luke Garza and Iowa getting the upset here. I mean, at 6-over-3, I don't know how much of an upset that is, but we'll kind of go with it. But we're going to go with Florida State winning there. I think that they're just a more talented team in general, and they're at the top of the ACC. I think that they can get the job done. Dayton, I think, will be able to beat Marquette. As much as I want to pick Marcus Howard and Marquette moving on there, got to go with Dayton with Obi Toppin. They're just a more impressive team at this point in the season. Baylor, I think, will be able to hold on against my Kentucky Wildcats. I'm not going to be a homer and think that Kentucky can somehow beat them. Then we got Dayton and Florida State. I'm going to go with Obi Toppin and Dayton moving on here to the Elite Eight, which sets up a 1 versus 2. I know this this region of the bracket was kind of chalk, but sometimes that's just the way it works. Dayton and Butler, obviously Dayton and Baylor in the Elite Eight. I think that Baylor's going to be able to get the job done there and move on to the Final Four. I mean, they haven't lost since I think it was the first game of the season against Washington where they led for pretty much the entire game. So I'm not going to hold that against them. And then down here in the bottom left regional, we have Gonzaga versus the winner of Robert Morris and NCAA. Obviously, we're going to have Gonzaga end up winning that one. And then I think that Texas Tech will be able to hold on against Wichita State. They really impressed me in that game against Kentucky. Then I think they got a quality victory recently, I think against West Virginia. I think that, don't quote me on that. But then I'm going to go with my first big upset of the tournament. I'm going to go with Furman beating Arizona. I know Nico Mannion can definitely push Arizona past Furman, but there's always upsets in the NCAA tournament, and Furman's coming out of the surprisingly strong Southern Conference where we have Furman, East Tennessee State, UNC Greensboro, and even if you want to throw Wofford in there, you can. They're not as good as they were last year, but I think that Furman will be able to get the job done there and pull off the upset. Auburn, I think, will be able to beat Stephen F. Austin, though that could be another upset pick. Stephen F. Austin did go and beat Duke at Duke earlier in the season. Illinois, I think, will beat Florida, and then we got Seton Hall beating Colgate, and we got Indiana, I think, will be able to hold on and upset Houston. It's a 10-over-7, but it's still an upset because the lower seed team wins. And then Duke will be able to beat Bowling Green. Then we have Gonzaga versus Texas Tech. Those two teams seem to always find each other in the NCAA tournament as of late. Then we got Auburn beating Furman. Furman's kind of Cinderella run is going to come to an end after one game. Seton Hall, I think, will be able to hold on with Miles Powell against Illinois. Then we got Duke beating Indiana. Battle of the, two really good program histories. Indiana's kind of fallen off recently, but that's another story for another day. Gonzaga, I think, will be able to hold on here against Auburn. Auburn has been impressing me as of late. They've been stringing together some quality wins and did beat Kentucky, even though they did shoot 44 free throws in that game. That's just sour grapes, but that's just the way the ball rolls sometimes. But then we also have Seton Hall. As much as I want to pick them to beat Duke, they did just go and lose to Xavier at home. I got to go with Duke winning that one. They're just more talented team across the board. And as much as I want to pick Seton Hall, I think I've been picking Seton Hall recently. I just got to go with Duke. They're continuing their strong run. But for a spot in the Final Four, I'm going to throw Gonzaga in there. Beating Duke, I think that Mark Few deserves a chance at the Final Four again. I think he has a really strong team this year. I mean, they've only lost one time, and that was to a really hot team in Michigan in the battle for Atlantis. We'll go and do the bottom right regional, kind of switch it up here. We're going to have San Diego State beat North Florida. I mean, that one's pretty obvious. Michigan, I think, will be able to hang on here and beat St. Mary's. I know that's kind of a weird thing for me to say, even though Michigan's been losing recently. I don't know why my camera wasn't showing that. Then we got LSU. I think that they'll be able to hold on there against Vermont, though. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go with another upset pick here. I'm going to go with Vermont beating LSU. LSU did just lose to Vanderbilt. That is a bad loss. That is a quadrant 3 loss. And Vermont's always one of the strongest, like, lower mid-majors, if you want to say that. You could say a lower major. I don't know, whatever you classify them as. But they're always a team that could scare people in March. I think that they get the upset pick there. Then Oregon, I think, will hold off New Mexico State. That could be another upset pick, but I think Peyton Pritchard and Oregon are going to be too strong for that one. Then I'm going to go with Virginia beating Oklahoma, and then Virginia also beating Creighton. I know I was talking up Creighton in the last bracketology update that I did, but I really like Virginia in that matchup. Then we got Maryland beating Charleston. Ohio State, I was getting ragged on for picking against them, which at that point I was pretty confident in picking against them, but I really like it's all about matchups in the NCAA tournament. And this one here against Rhode Island, I think Ohio State can get the job done. They are on a 3-game win streak, did get that road win against Michigan, and I like that matchup there against Rhode Island. Then West Virginia is going to beat Montana. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we got San Diego State beating Michigan, Oregon holding off Vermont. Then we got Maryland. I think we'll be able to beat Virginia. And then we got West Virginia beating Ohio State. Almost went with Ohio State there. But I think West Virginia, with their stout defense with Bob Huggins, are going to be able to hold off Ohio State. Then for a spot in the Elite Eight, we are going to have Oregon pull off the upset here against San Diego State. San Diego State is going to be our first 1 seed to fall. And we have Maryland. I think they're going to be able to beat West Virginia. I think that what sets up an Elite Eight between the number 4 seed Oregon Ducks and then the number 3 seed Maryland Terrapins. And we are going to pick Oregon to move on to the Final Four. I know these Final Fours have kind of been the same bracketology, but these teams aren't losing at this point. I think they'll be able to get the victory there. So then up here in the top right regional four spot in the last Final Four, we have Kansas beating Murray State. Wisconsin, I think, will be able to beat Arkansas. Arkansas just hasn't been looking too impressive as of late. Penn State, I think, will be able to hold on here against Yale. Villanova, I think, will beat North Texas. I know I've been going with chalk in this bracket, but I'm going to switch it up here. I'm going to go with the winner of Xavier and Mississippi State beating Colorado. I don't know who would end up winning that game, but I think that either way, I think that whoever wins that will beat Colorado. Michigan State, I think, will be able to beat Wright State. Then we got Purdue beating BYU. Purdue can just go off or any... Like, they beat Michigan State by 29. They beat Iowa by 36. It's just a matter of which Purdue team actually shows up to play. Then Louisville, I think, will be able to beat UC Irvine. Up next, we have Kansas beating Wisconsin. Then we have Penn State, I think, will be able to beat Villanova. That program's starting to turn it around. Michigan State, I think, will be able to beat the winner of Xavier and Mississippi State. Then I'm going to go with an upset pick here, and I'll put Louisville in the national championship game in my last bracketology. But they are going to run into the buzzsaw that is Purdue if they are hot. And why this is all about upsets. Why not go with a 10-2 upset pick here? This isn't me just ragging against Louisville, but they did struggle against Wake Forest. And if they kind of go... start the first half like they did against Wake Forest, but against Purdue, I think Purdue can definitely beat them in that situation. Then up for a spot in the Elite Eight, we got Penn State, I think, upsetting Kansas. We can't have 3 number 1 seeds in the Final Four. We got to go with an upset pick here with Penn State moving on past Kansas. Then we got Michigan State beating Purdue in a battle of the Big Ten teams, which sets up another Big Ten matchup here in the Elite Eight. Penn State versus Michigan State, and I'm going to go with the Spartans with Cassius Winston. I think that his leadership abilities will be able to move him into the Final Four. And then for a spot in the national championship game, Baylor Gonzaga. I think that this should be the national championship game in and of itself, but I'm going to go with Gonzaga with Mark Few. I think that's what I did in the last bracketology too. Then I'm going to go with Michigan State with Cassius Winston beating Oregon to move on to the national championship game, which I think that Gonzaga will end up winning. I think I had Gonzaga winning the last bracketology too, but I mean, they only have that one loss this season. It was to Michigan. They haven't been playing great competition, but they've been winning the games that they're supposed to win. Why not go with them to win the national championship? So, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out the rest of my bracketologies if you guys enjoyed. I can't remember if I showed those the right side of that bracket. I don't know what's going on with my camera this season, for this bracketology, but if you're still around, I know this has been a long one, almost 15 minutes. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all later.